All right, what's up, guys? Well, welcome to today's live training. Today is all about how to lose 15 pounds of fat and gain 15 pounds of muscle. In other words, we are working and we are learning about how to do what's called recomp in the fitness world. And we're going to go over that definition here in just a second. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's session. So again, this is going to be another nerdy session. I'm not going to go into teaching some of the basics because it's just a little too basic. More than anything, I want to talk about the general concepts of how we're going to do this, okay? What the real problem is, what people are saying, okay? And then when they try to transfer that over and when they try to say it or when they try to accomplish it, some mistakes that people are making, okay? And then I really want to get into the definition of what recomp really means and how we actually do it. And then we're going to start off the very end. We're going to go through two things. Number one, how we're actually going to do it, okay? And the final thing that I want to cover is why people can't ever achieve it and some mistakes that people are making. So normally I start with the mistakes that we make, and then I go into talking about, how we're going to achieve it. But this time I felt it would be just right to actually go over the mistakes at the very end because this is a pretty nerdy session. Okay. All right. First, let's start off with the problem. Now, the title of this episode is a little misleading. It's not necessarily if you just want to lose 15 pounds of fat. Okay. This could be if you want to lose 5 pounds of fat, if you want to gain 10 pounds or lose 10 pounds of fat. It could even go as far as 30 pounds of fat. But essentially, you are trying to lose the same amount of fat as you're trying to gain in muscle. Okay. So you're trying to lose 30 pounds of fat and gain 30 pounds of muscle. Okay. So that's essentially what today is. It doesn't necessarily have to be 15. It can be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 pounds of fat and gain 50 pounds of muscle. Okay. It can be anything like that, but it's when you're trying to lose and gain about the same amount of weight. Okay. All right, cool. So having said that, here are some things that I know just when I start talking to somebody, if I know they need to go into recomp, okay, when they say things to me like, hey, I don't necessarily want to lose weight, I just want to tone. Okay, I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot in women. Okay, I don't necessarily want to lose weight. I like the way that I'm at. I just want to tone. Okay, another one is I want to lose about 5 pounds of fat, or I want to lose about 10 pounds of fat, and I want to tone. More than anything, I want to tone. Okay, that word keeps coming up. Women like to use that. Guys use a little bit of terminology. A lot of times, guys will say the exact same thing, and they'll say something along the lines is, I want to stay about the same weight, but I just want to be leaner. Okay, they really want to be shredded, but they want to have that heavy, thick muscle, right? They want to look like Captain America, right? Or they'll even say, hey, look, I like the way that my clothes fit me. I like that I'm able to fill out my shirts and my jeans. And I like my height and my weight ratio, but I really just don't like my body fat. I want to drop my body fat a lot. Okay. Again, if you're saying any of these things, if you're a woman and you say you want to tone, if you're a guy and you're like, I just want to be leaner, but I want to stay about the same weight. Okay. This session is all for you. What you're trying to do is you're trying to lose fat and you're trying to gain muscle. That's how I know that you want to do this. Okay. That's how I know you want to recomp. Okay. Anytime I hear that, I know that we're talking about recomp, and that's exactly what you're doing. Okay, cool. So before I jump into recomp, let's talk about that word toning. Okay, this is the word toning. In fact, in one of my ebooks that I wrote, it's called Proven Fat Loss Strategies. In that ebook, I actually talk about the toning up dilemma. That's the name of the chapter, right? The toning up dilemma. Okay. And the reason why I called it that is because a lot of people, when they say the word toning, they don't really know what it means. Okay. So toning requires two things. It requires you to lose body fat and it requires you to increase muscle. Okay. Now, the example that I use in the book is I say, we've all seen those ladies that, maybe in guys too, right? Sometimes they'll call themselves skinny fat. They're doing a ton of cardio and their body fat is really low, but they don't have any muscle. So they're not considered toned. Those are the ones that are calling me up and say, hey, I want to learn how to tone. Okay. So they have low amounts of body fat, but they still feel a little bit soft. They still feel a little bit jiggly. They're not firm, okay? Some people will call them skinny fat, like I said, okay? And then we've all seen those guys who are big and muscular, and some people will call them fat big, right? They're big, but they're kind of fat, right? They have big muscles, but they don't have low amounts of body fat. And so we wouldn't call those people tone either. Okay. So in order to be toned, you need both of those things to exist. You need to have lower amounts of body fat and higher amounts of muscle mass. Okay. And if you do that, you will be toned. Okay. Now the next question is how much muscle do you really need to gain? And how much fat do you really need to lose? That's really the bigger question here, okay? So that's the word toning. So just understand that. Toning requires two things to happen. It requires your muscle to go up, and it requires your body fat to go down. The big question is how much do you want this one to go down, your fat, and how much muscle do you want this to go up? And then we can formulate that for your particular preference on what's right for you, okay? But toning requires both of those things, okay? So in other words, what you're really trying to do when you say I want to tone or I want to stay about the same weight and I want to lose body fat, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to do what the fitness world calls as recomp or recomposition, okay? Your body's composition is essentially what your body fat is, okay? We've talked about this before a million times, okay? But if we were to get your body fat percentage, okay, we can separate of how many pounds you have of total fat mass and how many pounds of your body weight is what's called lean body mass, which includes muscle and hair and bones and things like that, okay? So your weight, your total weight is composed of how much fat you have and how much lean body mass you have, okay? That ratio is your body fat percentage, okay, or your body composition, okay? So when we say recomp, what we're trying to do is we're trying to change our body's composition. We're trying to change the ratio of fat and muscle that we have on our body, okay? And so that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We want to have less fat and we want to have more muscle. So anytime you hear the word, I want to recomp, or this program is about recomping, that's all it's doing, is we are changing your ratio of fat and muscle. We are most likely lowering your fat and increasing your muscle. Okay. In other words, we're toning, right? So either you guys go toning. Okay. So that's all we're trying to do. That's what the word recomp means. So if you're trying to tone, it's recomp. If you are trying to stay at the same weight, but you're just trying to drop a lot of body fat, okay, well, how do you think you do that? It's recomp. Okay. That's all the same thing. So recomp is for both men and for women. Okay. Now let's talk about how we actually go through recomp. Okay, we know we're trying to lose body fat and we're trying to increase muscle. Okay, so number one, what we got to do, first thing, is we have to know our starting point. Okay, I've used this example a gazillion times, and I want you to think about this. Okay, anytime that you are trying to go somewhere in your car and you've never been there before, okay, you always open up your GPS, okay, either Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever it is. You open up your GPS, and the first thing that happens on that GPS is it tells you your blue dot. This is your starting point, okay? So it tells you your starting point. You have to know that when you're in recomp, okay? You have to know your starting point. Then what you do in that GPS is you go and you write down your destination, where you want to be, okay? And then you hit enter, and then that creates a step-by-step plan to help you get there. So just like a GPS system, we need to know these exact things. When you want to get to an exact location, a very specific place, an address, okay, you need to know the very specific place that you want to be at, but you also need to know the very specific place that you're starting at, okay? So number one, how do we do it? You got to know your starting point. You got to know your weight. You got to know your body fat percentage, okay? You got to do your calculations and calculate to see how many pounds of fat you have on your body. And the last thing is you got to calculate how many pounds of lean body mass that you have on your body. Okay. So if you don't know how to calculate your fat pounds, if you don't know how to calculate your lean body mass, just shoot me a DM, comment below, say, I don't know how to calculate, please teach me. Okay. And I will teach you. Okay. It's very simple. I can send you the formula. It's easy. Okay. So we have to know those four things. Okay. Now, if you don't know these four things, okay, You are literally just guessing at what's happening to your body. Okay. You're just guessing at what changes that you need to make on a monthly or weekly basis. Okay. And everything that you're doing is based on judgment. It's based on how you feel. It's based on maybe other people's opinions that are at the gym and say, oh, you look like you're getting leaner. But it's not based on true facts. Okay. So you need to know these 4 facts: your weight, your body fat percentage, your pounds of fat mass, and your pounds of lean body mass if you want to do recomp. Okay, cool. So now we know our starting point. The next thing is we have to know the goal. Okay. Now this is where a lot of people really struggle, is they don't know what is good. They don't know what is bad. They don't know what their goal should be. Okay. And if you don't know, I'll tell you, it's hard to find out without asking a coach, okay? Or it's hard to find out without knowing a coach, because everybody kind of has their own unique formula of what works for them. And you kind of have to figure it out by trial and error. Now, I can tell you that all of my clients, we know exactly about where it needs to be, okay? But I'll make it simple for you, okay? If you are 130 pounds, we'll just make this up, okay, and you want to stay about the same weight, okay, then we can probably guess that, and let's say you want to lose 10 pounds of fat. Well, we know that you want to lose 10 pounds of fat and you need to gain 10 pounds of muscle. That's an easy way of figuring that out, okay? But I will tell you that most people feel really comfortable when they're about 30 pounds of total fat mass, anywhere between 20 and 30 pounds of total fat mass. Okay. Just depending on how tall you are. Okay. It can even be up to 40 pounds of fat mass if you're like 6'6", 6'5", or whatever. Okay. But typically the 20 to 30 pound of fat mass mark is where people really feel comfortable. Okay. So if you know the goal is to increase muscle, right? The basic goal is to increase muscle. The basic goal is to decrease body fat. Now you have to attach numbers to that, okay? If you want to start off at, hey, I want to increase 10 pounds of fat, I want to increase 10 pounds of muscle, and I want to decrease 10 pounds of fat, you can start there, okay? If you don't know, then I would start with 5, or I would even start with 10 pounds of fat either way, right? I want to gain 10 pounds. In this case, I want to gain 15 pounds of muscle, and I want to lose 15 pounds of fat. Okay, so now that we know those goals, let's just say that's the spirit of this conversation. Now that we know those goals, now the second step is we have to figure out what is the right strategy. Okay, and this is where people really mess up. If you do not have a strategy, okay, on gaining muscle and losing fat, you are going to fail every single time. You have to have a strategy. Okay. If your strategy is, I'm just going to lose fat and gain muscle simultaneously, it's wrong, okay? Let me tell you why, okay? In order to gain muscle, you need to eat over your maintenance calories. You need to be in a caloric surplus, okay? In order to gain muscle, you need to eat over your maintenance calories. Let's just say your maintenance calories are 2,000 calories per day. Okay. In order to gain muscle, you need to eat over 2,000 calories. We'll call it 2,500 for a nice even number. Okay. In order to lose fat, you need to eat under your maintenance calories. Let's just call it 1,500. Okay. So how are you going to do both? How are you going to increase muscle and lose body fat at the same time when they are contradicting goals? In order to gain muscle, you need to eat up here. You need to be over your maintenance calories. In order to lose fat, you need to eat under your maintenance calories. So when you set out and your strategy is, I'm going to do both at the same time, you are shooting yourself in the foot, because you're going to end up doing things that are just going to be chasing your own tail. Okay. I'll give you a perfect example of this with me. Okay. True story. Okay. So when I went to college, and this was kind of the beginning of my journey of fitness, I gained a lot of weight. I gained 25 pounds in the first 30 days that I was there. Okay. And I'm not going to get into the whole spiritual story about it, but I gained 25 pounds. Okay. And then over the next couple years, I lost 50 pounds. Okay. I got all the way down to 165 pounds. Okay. I lost 50 pounds. Okay. Now, when I finally lost all that weight, I was really lean, but I didn't have a lot of muscle. Okay. But I was so terrified of gaining fat and gaining weight again that I set up my entire program. My cardio was set up to lose fat. My eating was set up to lose fat, but I was spending 2 to 3 hours in the gym lifting weights so I could gain muscle. Okay. And I mean, a year and a half, 2 years, I was stuck at 165 pounds because I was doing both. I was doing cardio. I was doing an hour of cardio, okay, to lose fat. I was eating about 15 to 1800 calories a day, which is way below my maintenance calories, okay? But I was spending 2 to 3 hours in the gym, lifting weights, lifting heavy, grunting, spitting, all that stuff, okay? And I got absolutely nowhere. Why? Because they are contradicting goals, okay? They cannot work simultaneously. So I changed my major in school and I changed it to exercise science, and I started learning all this stuff. And what did I do? I said, you know what? I'm going to actually apply what I'm learning, and I'm going to focus on muscle building right now. I'm just going to focus on pure muscle building because that's what I want to do more than anything. I want to lose muscle. So that's exactly what I did. I got into a caloric surplus, okay? And I started eating calories. I actually eliminated my cardio with the exception of 1 day a week, and I would do a 45-minute run 1 day a week. I put my weight training at about an hour, okay? And all of a sudden, everything started to change. Immediately, my weight went from 170 pounds at that point all the way up to 190 in 6 months, okay? But my body fat went from 15%. I started at 170 pounds, 15% body fat, okay? And I wanted to gain muscle. So then I ended up in 6 months, I gained up 190 pounds at 7% body fat, just simply by focusing on adding muscle, okay? And so I won't explain to you why that happened, but all of a sudden that revolutionized everything for me. I was about 21 years old at that point, and that revolutionized everything. I said, wow, okay, there's actually, if we follow science, it'll actually work. And that changed the game for me on not just my body, but how I approached everybody's body. Follow the science and you will get results, okay? So if you have the strategy, I'm going to do both, not going to work, okay? Strategy. I'll make it a really simple strategy for every single person out there that wants to do recomp, okay? If your focus is only losing fat and that's it, your focus is not building muscle, then you're not trying to do recomp. You need to go watch my fat loss video, okay? If your focus is only building muscle, okay, and you don't care about your body fat, then you're not trying to do recomp. You're trying to do lean bulk. So go watch that video, okay? But if you're trying to do both, you're trying to lose body fat and you're trying to increase muscle, this is the strategy I'm going to tell you to take. Focus on building muscle first, okay? I know nobody wants to hear that, okay? Everybody wants to start with fat loss because that's the most painful thing that we have on our body. But if you focus on building muscle first, you'll be able to eat a lot more food. Everybody wants to eat a lot of food, right? The less food you eat, the more miserable you are, the more cranky you are, the more likely you have cravings, the more likely you are to fall into your cravings if you eat less, right? But the more that you eat, the more full you are. Okay. The more food you can eat, the happier you are, the better your training sessions are going to be. Okay. So focus on focus on building muscle first. Okay. You're in a caloric surplus. Okay. Or even eat at your maintenance calories, but eat more food than what you're eating right now. Okay. And focus on building muscle and, maybe limit your cardio. Don't do as much cardio. Okay. Cause you're not doing fat loss, but focus on building muscle. And do that and continue doing that until you feel you've built enough muscle, until the data shows that you've built the amount of muscle that you want to build, okay? Now, if you're trying to gain 30 pounds of muscle, you probably don't want to do it, gain all 30 pounds of muscle before you start losing fat, okay? You may just want to do it at 10-pound increments, right? You may want to build 10 pounds of muscle first and then lose 10 pounds of fat. Then build 10 pounds of muscle, and then lose 10 pounds of fat. Okay. So you might want to do it like that if you have a lot of muscle to build. Okay. So you can do this in a couple phases. You don't necessarily have to do it all at once. Okay. So focus on building muscle first. Once you've built your goal, whether it's 10 pounds, 15 pounds, or even 7.5 pounds, whatever it is, once you've built that amount of muscle, now you can start focusing on losing fat. Okay. And then you can structure your program to start losing fat. Okay. All right. That's all I'm going to talk about, the strategy. Okay. I'll tell you this, fat loss is the easiest part of this entire thing. Okay. Muscle building. Anybody who's tried muscle building, they will always tell you that is the hardest damn thing to do. Okay. So focus on building muscle first. Once you've done that, you increase your metabolism, you increase the number of calories your body burns per day, you increase the amount of calories that you can eat on a daily basis to maintain your calories, okay? And all that does is it helps you build everything, build that fat burning machine. So then when you switch your strategy to losing fat, it's so much easier, okay? Let me give you an example of that, okay? Let's say that I were to have somebody come in and I were to do all of their numbers and figure all that stuff out. Okay. And I see there what their lean body mass is. I see their fat mass. We set the goal. They want to lose 10 pounds of fat, gain 10 pounds of muscle. That's what they want to do. Okay. I might calculate that they need to be eating 2,000 calories to maintain their muscle at their current state. Okay. Where they are as far as their low muscle. Okay. So then we start focusing on building muscle. Like I said, that's strategy number one, or that's the first thing you want to do. We focus on building muscle, okay? So we're building muscle, building muscle, building muscle, building muscle. And then all of a sudden, because they are building more muscle, remember this, that your metabolism is a direct reflection of the amount of muscle that you have on your body. So if you want your metabolism to be higher, build muscle. Okay. So we're building muscle, but while we're building that muscle, we are building that metabolism. Okay. So now I go back after 3 or 4 months, I go back and I recalculate what their metabolism is or what their maintenance calorie is. Okay. And at first they were at 2,000, but now their maintenance calorie is at 2,500. Okay. So yeah, we may have set their calories initially to be at 2,000 calories a day. And that's what they were eating because that's what their body said, but they grew muscle, right? Then when I recalculate it, they're at 2,500 calories. So now they can continue to eat 2,000 calories, but they're actually in a caloric deficit because we built their muscle. Okay, we built their muscle to now start burning 2,500 calories a day. And now it makes the fat loss process so much easier. You don't have to go into these extreme caloric deficits. You don't have to go into these extreme hunger spells or being hungry all the time because you're eating so low amounts of food. If you want to eat high amounts of food and you want to lose fat, focus on building muscle first, okay? Then once you build that muscle, recalculate everything and then design your program to start losing fat. So now let's talk about why people can't achieve recomp, the mistakes that people make. Okay, I already said the first one. I let the cat out of the bag. Okay, they focus on trying to do both. They focus on trying to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. I already talked about why that's a mistake. Okay, number 2. People aren't patient enough to get results, okay? They want to get results extremely fast, okay? Just recently, I had somebody who I spoke to who said that he wants to lose about almost 40 pounds of fat, and he wants to do it in less than 6 months, okay? Now, if you want to do that in less than 6 months, if you go all the way back to what we originally talked about, right? 1 pound of fat is what's considered healthy fat loss, okay? So 40 pounds of fat is about 40 weeks. That's about 10 months, okay? So it's going to take about 10 months just to lose that amount of body fat, okay? But then there was also this other thing of, but I also want to gain 40 pounds of muscle, okay? Well, whoa. And you want to do this all in less than 6 months? That just can't happen. Okay. Now, if I didn't say anything to this person, or if this person tried to do it on their own, they would probably get really upset because they didn't gain 40 pounds of muscle and lose 40 pounds of fat in less than 6 months. Okay. You have to understand there is a time process here and it takes time. Okay. That's just how it is. So you've got to be patient to get results. But the reason why most people don't achieve recomp is because they're not patient enough to get results. Okay. All right. Now here is a big one that I deal with all the time. This is a big mistake of why people can't achieve body fat loss and increase muscle. In other words, why people can't recomp. Okay. When they are building muscle, they get upset when their fat doesn't go down. Okay. So if you're in that strategy of you're in that first phase of you're building muscle, okay, and you're working. Okay. And then you look at your results and you're like, hey, I didn't lose any fat. People get upset about that. Not only do they get upset, they think something's wrong. And they're like starting to get to that point where, hey, you know what? I don't think this is the right program. I don't think this is working. Look, you were focused on building muscle. Why are you judging yourself based on how much fat you lost? Okay. If your focus is on building muscle, then judge yourself based on how much muscle you built. Don't judge it because you didn't lose any fat. Okay. I will tell you, this comes up all the time. If you are in the phase of building muscle, judge yourself based on how much muscle you're building. Don't judge yourself based on how much fat you're losing. Okay. You're not in that phase of losing fat yet. Okay. So truthfully, people get really upset in the muscle building phase when their fat doesn't go down. Okay. Doesn't make any sense. Okay. And vice versa. When people are in a fat loss phase, they get really upset when their muscle doesn't change. Maybe their muscle comes down just a little bit. Okay. And maybe they've been working on losing fat, for 4, 5, 6 months. And they've noticed over the 4, 5, and 6 months, they haven't gained any lean body mass. Right. And they start getting upset about that. Look, if you're trying to lose fat and that's how your program is designed, then judge yourself based on how much fat you're losing, right? If you want a good fat loss program, will help you lose fat and at worst, maintain your muscle. Okay. Now, again, you might increase it a little bit, but you're not going to increase it by 30 pounds if you're trying to lose 30 pounds of fat. A good fat loss program will focus on maintaining muscle and losing all the fat that you want. Okay. So don't get upset. If you're in the fat loss phase, don't get upset because your lean body mass isn't changing. That's okay. That means it's actually a good program. Okay. Most people, when they try to do their own program and they try to do their own cut, okay, what they always notice is, oh my gosh, my strength went down completely. My energy levels were really low and I lost a lot of muscle, right? Because they cut their calories so low that they lose fat and they lose muscle, right? And they can never achieve that right balance. But a good fat loss program will help you maintain your muscle and make you drop all of that body fat. Okay. So don't get upset when you are in your fat loss process and your muscles staying the same. That's how you know it's working. Okay. All right, cool. Now here's another one. Number 5, people will quit on their recomp, or people will never achieve recomp because they'll have a bad month. Right? Their numbers basically don't really change. Maybe their fat goes up a little bit. Maybe their muscle goes down a little bit. Something happens. They just have a bad month and they're like, oh, you know what? I had a bad month. This is it. This program isn't working. Let me quit. Okay. Progress is not linear, guys. It doesn't just happen like this. If everybody went like this on their progress chart, then like it would be that easy to understand it, but that's not what happens. Okay. I have a really cool chart that I show people sometimes, a really cool video. And I show somebody who really saw really amazing results with their body fat and their lean body mass. And I show what their chart actually looks like. And what you'll see is a sharp decline. Then you'll see a plateau. Then you see a sharp decline. Then you see a plateau. And then sometimes you'll see it go up. You'll see the chart go back up. And then they'll plateau. Then you'll see them go down and they plateau. And you see all that, right? Progress is not linear. What you want to see is the trend line. So just because you have a bad month, it's not a big deal. You just keep going with all, with the ups and downs. Okay. All right, cool. Now, number 6 is, I just talked about it. People just don't understand the process of getting results. They don't understand how their chart should look. They don't really understand that process, right? At the end of the day, it's all about the trend line. If your trend line is showing that you're headed in the right direction, don't get caught up on what's happening week to week or month to month. Okay. Look at the big picture. Okay. Anytime that you're assessing your results, I'm going to give you some secret sauce here. Anytime that you're assessing results, you always want to assess it in 2 ways. Okay. What's happened from today, from last month? Okay. Or from last month to today, what happened there? And then you take a bigger picture. What happened in the last 6 months? Okay. Or what happened in the last 3 months? Okay. So you always want to look at 1 month to 1 month, and then you take a step back and you look at it about 6 months. Okay. Now this can vary depending on a person, but typically you always want to have those 2 perspectives. What's happened in the last month and what's happened over the last 6 months. That will ultimately help you determine if you're on the right track. Okay. All right. So here's another big one. Okay. People will come in, they'll get their measurements, they'll get upset. They're like, this should be working faster, right? But they only look at their numbers and determine if it's good or bad, right? They do not take what they have done. They do not take their habits into consideration. They do not take the fact that they went on vacation and they ate like whatever they wanted for 10 days, right? They do not take into consideration that they got sick and they couldn't work out, they couldn't do it, or they were traveling, or whatever the case may be. They don't take those things into consideration, and instead they just get really upset because they didn't get results. But when you have to look at what you are doing and what you are not doing, okay, if you're only looking at results and you're not looking at how you're actually executing the plan, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's a matter of time before you quit, because you're going to get so upset of what the numbers are doing, okay? I've said this before, that most of the time when people come in and they want to get these results, we don't really focus on the plan itself, like hitting these certain numbers or hitting this, and that. What we focus on more than anything is, let's get you to get consistent. Let's focus on your habits. Let's get you doing these particular things. And if we can just get your habits moving in the right direction, you will start to get results. But what do most people do? Most people focus on results. They focus on the plan. They focus on being perfect, but they don't focus on how they're actually going to do it. That's what we do as coaches. Our entire coaching program is about habit coaching. How do we get your habits to go there? Okay. So you have to take what you've done and what you are doing into consideration. So when I do this, when I go on vacation for 10 days and eat whatever I want, and I'm not eating my meal prep meals, then this is what happens to my body. Okay. That's how you need to look at it. You don't look at it as, oh, I didn't get good results, so that means everything must suck. No, it means I got these results, and I got these results because this is the way I live my life. Okay, now I understand. When I live my life like this, these are the results I'm going to get. Okay, cool. Now let's change how we live our life so we can get the results that we want. Okay, all right. And the number one reason, the absolute number one reason why people can't achieve recomp is because they don't get consistent with their program. And if you don't get consistent with your program, you're not going to achieve recomp. Okay. Now, a bonus thing that people don't do either is they don't take any measurements to start off with. They don't know their starting point. They don't know their end point. They just go based on what they think. That's a bonus point. But hopefully, after we went through the session, you understand the importance of doing that, and you cannot achieve recomp without doing that. Okay. So don't make that cardinal sin of doing that. Okay. But the number one reason why people never achieve recomp is because they don't get consistent with their program. Okay. All right, guys, that's going to end today's session. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions about today's topic about recomp, feel free to send me a private message and let's talk. Let's go back and forth. If you're interested in our coaching programs, just go to ifmcoaching.online, sign up for a coaching call, and we will go from there. Guys, it's been awesome. It's been wonderful. See you next time.